Okay, you know when this country does things against us and it backfires, they'll still use us, throw us under the bus to clean it up. That's what I gathered happened with DEI. Immigrants, particularly Somalis, use the DEI program as a cover to commit fraud. People, white folks who were investigating, peculiar activities didn't want to be called racist, so they would back off because Somalis would accuse them of being racist. But let that have been us saying, you know what, this is racist. They'll be like, I don't give a F. Matter of fact, you want to file a complaint? I'm going to help you. Check this out. Oh, and did you know that back in 2010, a group of Somalis were arrested for trafficking, sex trafficking?
The $1 billion welfare fraud scandal in Minnesota was enabled by DEI. Let me explain. Between 2020 and now, federal prosecutors say that more than $1 billion was stolen from Minnesota's social service programs and funneled to fraudulent nonprofits like Feeding Our Future. These organizations claim services for tens of thousands of children who didn't exist. Instead, taxpayer dollars went to funding luxury houses, high-end cars, jewelry, overseas real estate projects, and worst of all, Al-Shabaab, an Islamist terrorist group in Somalia. Now, new reporting shows that the Minnesota Department of Education officials noticed red flags early. They questioned invoices that made no mathematical sense. They noticed new feeding centers were registered in strip malls that were basically empty. They saw providers claiming to serve more meals than there were children living in entire zip codes. And every time they tried to investigate, they were hit with the same accusation. If you expose this, it's racist. That's because Feeding Our Future was run by American citizens of Somali heritage. When the state began scrutinizing their applications, the organization filed a discrimination complaint with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights and later sued the Department of Education, accusing it of racial bias and discrimination. Feeding Our Future weaponized DEI by telling the Minnesota Department of Education that failing to promptly approve new applicants from minority-owned businesses would result in a lawsuit featuring accusations of racism that would be sprawled across the news. In the post-George Floyd climate, that threat carried enormous political power. So agencies backed off, approvals kept flowing, and the fraud exploded. Most of the people charged in this fraud are a tiny fraction of Minnesota's Somali community, which is now stuck with the stigma created by a small group of offenders and a state government too scared to enforce basic rules. Minnesota is now shutting down programs, launching audits, and trying to rebuild oversight that should never have collapsed in the first place.
So I'm sure when Trump got in office and they heard these reports, because they got wind of it before we did, they was like, oh, we getting rid of this shit. But then they threw us under the bus. Black folks, we want you to get jobs based on your merits, not your color. And all along, they knew why they were ending the program. I'm tired of this. And do you know the guy who's head of the Heritage Foundation? You want me to tell you what his bone is? His bone is he was an expert in African-American history at the college he used to work. They removed that title from him because they said he was white. Trump got in office because he has a bone to pick. The Heritage Foundation dude has a bone to pick, and he's taking it out on us. I can't remember what video I was looking at, but they said that Africans, I don't remember what country, they said Africans said Somalis are the biggest scammers. I'm like, so when Africans say you're the biggest scammers, that's bad.